Hello, everybody. I'm talking tracksuit fetish. So, I've always known since a young age, since I hit puberty really, that I've got a fetish for tracksuits. I have a fetish for shiny gear in general, but the earliest acknowledgement for me was with tracksuits. Probably because they're such a easy accessible piece of clothing and you see them everywhere. There was an early acknowledgement with me that there's actually something more going on with this piece of clothing more than I just like the style of it. I enjoy wearing it. There was something more about the material and the designs, the colours that were used, and the way that tracksuits would fit on me and how they felt when I walked around in them, moved about in them. I remember being a teenager and I would put on a pair of tracksuit bottoms and pretty much immediately I would be stimulated and I would have to wait before I could even walk out of my bedroom. Um, so I knew fairly early on that there was more going on with this piece of clothing versus any other piece of clothing like jeans or shorts or shirts, t-shirts, that sort of thing. Of course, back then, because this was pre-internet, I had no idea that other people had this fetish as well. I thought it was just something specific to me, or I certainly didn't know anybody else who reacted to tracksuits in the way that I used to and still do. There are certain details about the design of tracksuits that I've always responded to. So it's not just the general feel of the material or the colours and patterns that are used. It's very specific things like the sewn in crease down the centre of the trousers. It's the positioning of zips at the hem. Um, I love the pop-up collar. Um, I also like when the draw cord is hanging out of the pants. I remember one of my earliest memories was seeing lads walking around wearing track pants with a t-shirt, but the draw cord would be hanging out of the pants. And I remember for some reason, I'm not going to question what the reason is, but for some reason, I had a thing for that as well. Especially during summer months when it would be quite sunny outside, there was a certain way that the light would reflect off of a tracksuit that I really loved watching as lads and men would be walking past. This then would become a lot more apparent when, in the mid noughties, Adidas started issuing the Chili 62 tracksuits, um, almost like the one that I'm wearing now. These tracksuits have gone through a few design changes through the years. But one thing that's always been consistent is the shine. They are the shiniest tracksuits made out of polyester that you can buy. And I remember the first time I ever saw a pair of Chili track pants online. It was in the mid noughties, and straight away I was buying them. They're not as commonplace these days, but there are still some available to buy online, but they are a lot more expensive. I have bought a few of them over the years, and I've featured them in quite a few of my videos. These tracksuits in particular, like I say, I love the shine on them. They fit really comfortably, and they do have a smoothness that is just perfect for me. One of the things I remember when I was a teenager was I have a fetish for tracksuits, and there's all these lads and men wearing tracksuits in a casual manner, and I'm having difficulty even just slipping a pair of tracksuit bottoms on without getting a boner, and they're all walking around wearing them in such a casual manner, completely unaware that I'm looking at them in a completely different way to how they're looking at them. So as you can imagine, this was just making me crazy. So all this was back in the 1990s, before the internet was a thing, before online shopping, before picture sharing sites. And I remember one thing that I enjoyed doing was looking at the male models in clothing catalogues who were wearing tracksuits. And I used to fixate on, like I said, the specific details. I would zone in on the center crease going down the trouser legs. I would be staring at the way the light would shine off the material when, if one of the lads or men had his hands in his pockets. There would be, of course, the quirky catalogue poses, which were also, some of them were quite enjoyable to look at as well. A big difference in the design of tracksuits these days is that they are a lot more form-fitting. We have a gym culture today that did not exist 20 years ago. And I think as a reflection to that culture, the designers of tracksuits have gone for a look that is a lot more form-fitting on the body, and therefore shows off definition a lot better. So you'll have track pants which are a lot more tapered in the legs. They show off the thighs better, they hug the bums better, and jackets which are more tapered on the arms to show definition, and they hug the body a lot more. The tracksuits of the 1990s and the early noughties were a lot more loose fitting. I really enjoy the look of current tracksuits. It's brilliant to be walking down the street. I'm seeing all these beautiful men walking around wearing these outfits that, for me, is a fetish. And yet they're wearing them in a completely casual, non-fetish way. They are showing off their really nice physiques. It drives me crazy. So on the one hand, I'm enjoying what I'm looking at, and I'm gonna look. I'm only human. But at the same time, on the other hand, I catch myself looking a little bit too long. I do think it's great that you've got all these men who are confident enough and comfortable enough to be walking around wearing clothing that shows off their physique. Because back when I was growing up, if a bloke was wearing a pair of trousers, a pair of pants that was showing off his nicely curved arse and nicely formed thighs, he probably would get some sort of homophobic slur thrown at him, regardless as to what his sexual orientation is. So, from a personal perspective, for me, it's great to see that there are online fetish retailers who are catering for those of us who have fetishes for tracksuits. And it's also really important that I'm also aware that I'm not the only one who has a fetish for tracksuits. That there are other guys out there who are like me, turned on by sports gear, as I said, primarily tracksuits. And so, therefore, it's not this completely unique thing to me. And there are other people out there who I can explore this fetish with. Even though tracksuits are a fetish item for me, I'm a lot less self-conscious these days when I go outside wearing a pair of track pants or wearing a full tracksuit. I no longer overthink wearing one in the way that I used to overthink it when I was much, much younger. I'm not as fixated on the recognition that it is a fetish item for me. I also no longer have that tenting problem that I had when I was a teenager. So, let me know in the comments, are tracksuits a fetish item for you? And if so, what are your earliest memories of realizing that you have a fetish for tracksuits and sports gear? And is there a specific brand that you particularly like? For me, it has to be Adidas. And is there a favourite design, a favourite time period that you particularly enjoy? Share your thoughts, and thank you for watching. Hope you found this video interesting, and I'll see you around.